All right, Oregon wins the Big Ten championship, although it was,
I didn't see that one coming.
It was a little, well, it was a little, I don't know. I don't know how big the pucker factor was for Oregon fans because it felt like if their offense got the ball back, you felt pretty good about it, right?
And that was my thing
but they punted late.
Yeah.
And that's when you went, ooh.
As close as that game was, even when Penn State had the ball at the end there trying to go down and they would need a touchdown and then a 2-point just to tie it. This is going to sound crazy. I never felt that Penn State was going to win that game. I never felt that Penn State was the better team. I never felt that that game was really in danger, simply because of what you said. They could do nothing to stop Oregon. Oregon did whatever they wanted, and that was, I don't know which was more shocking, to be honest with you. Watching the Penn State offense look like a real offense and just demolish a Duck defense that, if you want to nitpick this Oregon team, which I still say is the best team in the country, the number one team in the country, the most complete team in the country, and as good a shot as any to win a national championship, I do think it's fair. Much like when Ohio State played Oregon and we lauded the Ohio State defense, and then we watched it afterwards and be like, boy, is that really as good as we thought? The Oregon defense has played 3 real offenses all year. And I think we can be honest about it.
All 3 in the tournament.
All 3 in the tournament, right? They've played Boise State, they've played Ohio State, and they've played Penn State. It's the only 3 real offenses that they've played. And they have been gashed on the ground for 34 points against Boise State. Ohio State scored 31, and with the exception of the penalty at the end, closes that thing out probably. And then Penn State did whatever the hell they wanted against them. So
Penn State got 523 yards on them.
Yes.
They rushed for 300 yards.
Yeah.
8.7 yards per rush.
Yeah.
And really the only difference was they outgained them.
The turnovers.
Penn State, 523 yards. Oregon, 469 yards.
Yeah.
The only difference was Penn State turned it over twice.
Yep. Well, and I thought the big play in the game, and I was watching it, and I turned and I said, that right there is going to be the game. One, the Aller pick 6, was just brutal. But they had one.
Well, that wasn't a pick 6.
Well, no, but
it basically.
It
got
was
down to
pick
the
6.
Inside the 10
Yeah,
or
got
5.
inside the 10.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't a pick 6, but it essentially was a pick 6. When they were trading scores. And Penn State was going in to try to tie the game. They ran the unbalanced look where Ty Warren was basically the tackle, and he ran just a little seam route, and he was wide open. Just it was a touchdown. It was a walk-in touchdown, and Aller missed him. And then on 3rd and 9, for whatever reason, they ran Drew Aller on a draw, and then decided to kick a field goal. And I was like, well, that's the game. Aller just missed, and this is, if I'm Penn State, this is the part that stinks, and I've been very critical of Drew Aller for 2 years. This was by far the best game that I've ever seen Drew Aller play, and yet there were 3 or 4 throws that there was the difference between Dylan Gabriel and Drew Aller.
Agreed.
And the throwing the ball up, which you can say, yeah, probably should have been a PI, it probably should have been a holding call. I don't know why you're throwing that 50-50 ball at that point when Oregon has done nothing to stop you. The Ty Warren one, there's no reason not to make that throw. And then the interception that basically turned into the pick 6. And then there were 2 others where they ended up having to try to kick the field goal, where he had wide open first downs, and they pointed out on the broadcast, he just short-armed the ball and just missed guys. There were a handful of throws where he just was off, and that was the difference in this game, is that Dylan Gabriel in these big moments all year has just been a stone-cold assassin.
He was clinical.
And as good as Drew Aller was in this game, he missed 4 throws that you cannot miss to beat a team that's better than you, and that was the difference in this game.
I couldn't agree more. We were talking about this on Friday, that when it gets into these games, as long as all things are equal, mostly equal on the fronts, it becomes about your quarterback and your skill guys.
Yep.
And Oregon, I've been saying this all year, Oregon's receivers might win them a championship.
Yeah.
No one can cover them.
No. Penn Johnson is special.
Penn State has, so all the other guys, but they didn't even need the other guys because nobody could guard Tez Johnson in that game. And Gabriel is clinical in how he gets them the ball, even with what I thought was a pretty decent pass rush by Penn State at times in that game. So I don't, if Oregon wins the title, it might be that.
Yeah.
Because they're good enough everywhere else, but really where they're special is I don't know who the hell guards those guys. All of those guys. You saw Sadiq got a touchdown in that game.
Got two
of them.
I mean,
and that's just the thing is that if they have so many other guys that are capable that it's not clearly not just Tez, but if you put all your resources on Tez, there are going to be other people that beat you.
I don't see a defense that can stop that. I mean, Georgia's the one defense that you think, okay,
You'll need a pass rush, a better pass rush still.
That pedigree can scare you.
Look, Abdul Carter is a top 10 NFL pick. And we talked about that. I don't know if there's a first-round pick on right now. And maybe, Uyunglele at some point, but he's not going to the NFL next year. I don't know if there's a first-round pick on this year's team right now. Josh Connerly made himself a lot of money and maybe a first-round tackle because Abdul Carter is as good a defensive edge rusher as there is in college football. Him, Pierce, the kid down at Tennessee, there's some good ones. But Carter is an absolute beast, and Josh Connerly kicked his ass. To watch, I think it was 35 or 37 pass snaps and didn't give up a pressure, and they didn't give a lot of help out there when he ended up on his side, and they were moving him around. 76 versus 11, it wasn't a match. Connerly whooped his ass, and I just did not see that coming. I really thought that they would have to spend a lot of attention over there, and they did not. It was really an impressive performance. Oregon's biggest players on offense, they came through. From Connerly to Gabriel, and like you said, Tez Johnson. Whether you want to call him Tank Dell, whether you want to call him Deshaun Jackson, dude, the guy's like $150. But no one can guard him. And yeah, your defense didn't show up at all, except for, two plays, right? The two interceptions.
Can I say something about that? I think Penn State, we talked about this on Friday, and we actually talked about this on Thursday with Lanning. Just as Oregon has some bias against it around the country that really isn't true. For example, they're thought of as speed and flash, and they're not tough. That is just not true. And if you say that, that's how you tell us that you don't watch them.
Yeah.
They are tough as hell. Now, their sort of reputation for not winning the big one, they're gonna have to prove that. They're gonna have to go out and win some of these big games against the Texases and the Georgias and the Ohio States. Okay, but Penn State, just as Oregon has some of that bias, Penn State has a bit of that with their offense this year. It is not just 3 yards in a cloud of dust. No. As a matter of fact, we talked to Lanning on Thursday about Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator. And he said, dude, there is not a coordinator in the country that creates more explosive plays than that guy. Yeah. And if you only watch Penn State in its biggest games, I get why you would think that they don't have an offense because they only scored 13 against Ohio State. Yeah. But if you watch them the rest of the year, that is a good offense. And they had, as a matter of fact, I believe they outgained Oregon this year in all season.
I think the tough part for Oregon fans, though, is that mostly those are against your Purdues and Marylands of the world.
So is Oregon.
Agreed. But Oregon did against Ohio State.
I understand. Look, I'm not saying all of these when you get a reputation, it comes from somewhere. Mm. Sometimes it's just past reputation, and people aren't paying attention. That has gone away. Oregon's toughness is a major one. And I'm not saying Penn State doesn't have offensive issues against better teams. They certainly didn't against Oregon, and we thought Oregon's defense was damn good. Yeah. I don't know. I think that Penn State offense probably surprised a lot of people because they have the perception that it's Penn State and they don't put up a lot of yards or a lot of points. Dude, they've been doing that all year. Yeah. They have a really good offensive coordinator. They have a quarterback who is not Dylan Gabriel, but he can sling it. Mm-hmm. They have the best tight end in the country, and they ran on Oregon for 297 yards, man.
Yeah, they did.
So their offense has been creating explosive plays all year. The valid part of their reputation is that they don't do it against the best teams. Well, they just did it against Oregon. Yep. But they're going to have to do it more in the playoff in order to.
And Aller just can't have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right.
The 4 or 5 throws.
He's like Quinn Ewers. Like
yes.
When you watch Quinn Ewers, you go, where is the Quinn Ewers that everyone is raving about? And he's just not there. He's just not nearly as good as his reputation. And I think Drew Aller is the same way. Not that he's not good, and he put up 37 points against Oregon, but like you said, those games come down to the turnovers.
Handful of plays.
And, a couple of throws that you miss here or there. So, I think Oregon's defense, it can give up points. They've shown that they give up points to better offenses, but they also have big playmakers for big moments, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even when you give up 37, you get the interception, right? That was a hell of a play.
Yeah.
Or in this game it wasn't there, but let's say the next game, maybe you've given up 35, but Jordan Birch makes a big sack or whatever. So I think that's the thing you think about with Oregon's defense is they're going to give up some. They have this year against the better offenses they've played, but they have big playmakers for big moments. I think what gives you hope for Oregon is I don't know who the hell stops Gabriel and those receivers. I really don't.
It's going to be tough.
And they have a run game too.
Yeah.
So that's the exciting thing. I don't know how Oregon fans feel if it's like they feel worse because the defense was getting gashed by Penn State, and maybe now you don't feel as good about their playoff hopes. I don't think anything has changed.
Well, at this point, the one thing we know is the Oregon defense. The numbers are a little inflated. Okay, it's not a great defense. It's a very good defense. But the 3 playoff teams that you've played, this offense is going to have to score 30 points a game to win a national championship. But the nice part is, against the 3 playoff teams, guess what you've done? Scored 30-plus points. And as long as you stay healthy, as you stated, I'm not certain there's a defense that holds them to under 30 points.
All right, well, congrats to the Duckies. They are the champions of the Big Ten. By the way, did you love that the Pac-12 won the Big Ten and the Big 12?
I love it.
Arizona State winning the Big 12.
And yet they couldn't get a TV deal.
God, isn't that unbelievable?
I know.